if you do hourly billing at your firm, then time entry creation is what law firms spend way too much of their admin resource on. And so in this conversation today with Jack, the founder of a tool called Ajax, we talk about how his tool automates time entry capture by leveraging AI and essentially sitting in the background of your computers. You do your work, automatically creating time entries that you can then easily push into Clio Manage. We go over the full functionality of the product, how it compares to competitors on the market, and how can you get started with it today. So join me for this conversation with Jack, and I hope you get value out of this. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Jack. Jack is the founder of Ajax, which automates billing, automates time entries, and email login in the future for attorneys. And so, Jack, please tell me a bit more about the product, why you created Ajax in the first place, and what does it do?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk today. So, to start at the beginning, my parents were attorneys. My mom was a divorce lawyer, my dad was a corporate tax lawyer. They complained bitterly about timekeeping for literally since I was born. So, I grew up hearing about this problem forever. My brother and I, we kind of knew that this was a thing that people would it would benefit a lot of lawyers and a lot of our parents, especially if we were able to solve it. But the tech wasn't there. It was not actually possible to track what a lawyer was doing across their screen, across their phone, across their desk phone, all the mobile emails they send. Lawyers do a lot of complicated work and they switch between matters really quickly. So, up until a couple of years ago, it was just not possible to do good AI timekeeping and actually write time entries for people. So, when ChatGPT came out, we finally had this light bulb moment where we said, okay, this is maybe possible. And we started experimenting, we started prototyping, and long story short, over the last couple of years, we've built and are now working with a bunch of law firms with an AI timekeeper that sits on your computer, sits on your phone, tracks your calendar, tracks your calls, tracks your actual screen activity. It writes your entries for you in your voice. It picks a matter for you. It uses your activity codes if you have them, and it syncs directly into Clio. So it basically gets you 90% of the way there without you having to do any work and finds you more billable hours.
Love it, love it. And so, what kind of activities can it track? Is it like literally everything? Calls, emails, any actual like work on drafts and documents? What can it track?
Literally everything. That is, except for your in-person impromptu meetings. So you walk into a coworker's office to talk about a brief for 20 minutes and you have no record of that electronically. We're not planting spy cameras. So you're going to have to enter that one on your own. But if it happens on your screen, it gets captured via screen reading. So literally just tracking all the words that move across your screen does a very good job of tracking your attention as you move between windows, move between browser or monitors. We also capture email via an Outlook or Gmail integration. So even if you're sending it from your phone or from your iPad, we got that. If it's anything calendar, so let's say you have a court date set or you have a meeting with your counterparty in a transaction, we basically read that calendar, read the attendees, and write the narrative on the basis of what's happening. We're also able to track most phone calls. So if you work with a VoIP system that we integrate with, it grabs not just the caller ID and actually like who was in it and what matter it relates to, but if transcripts are available, it looks at the transcripts and it writes a pretty good narrative that describes exactly what happened on that call. So you can assume that 95% of your day is just going to be there whenever you log in and written for you.
Love it, love it. Well, let's see how it actually works in practice, and as we go along, then feel free to add more details. I would love to see how can you then actually like how much review is then actually needed of these entries, and also is there any ability, for example, to add them after the fact? How much flexibility is there?
Yeah, great questions. So best way to solve that or show you is just to dive in. I'm going to right now share screen and let's do some legal work. So I'm gonna unpause Ajax. I've had it paused just because I want to give you all a blank slate to work from. Most people just keep it running in the background all the time. So first things first, I'm just going to answer some emails. Clearing my inbox, I've got a note from Percy Sullivan. He's a client of mine. He works at Aerodyne, and he's asking me about the status of a motion for summary judgment. I'm going to say, Percy, we are on track. I'll let you know if anything changes. Best, Jack. So so that you can keep track as you're watching. A reasonable narrative here would be something like corresponded with client regarding motion for summary judgment filing timeline, and a reasonable matter would be something related to Aerodyne. All right, so I'm going to quickly jump to a totally different client, totally different matter. This is Richard Alfaro. He works at Napoleon Digital Medical Solutions, and he wants to talk about our early discovery findings. Richard, great. Looping in Linda to help us schedule. Fast Jack. And I'm going to loop in my assistant Linda. And again, so you can keep track, a reasonable matter would be Napoleon Digital Medical Solutions, and a reasonable narrative would be about corresponding with the client regarding discovery findings in an upcoming meeting.
If you just read the email but don't actually respond to it, will it still log it as an entry?
Yeah, really good question. So let's just read this for a while. I'm just going to scroll and scan it, and I'm not going to actually draft a response. What's happening now is Ajax is reading my screen, so I don't need to have sent it. It's literally looking through these words, and if it's doing its job, it will see St. Regis Ball Harbor, and it will see Sarah Thompson with Thompson Engineering, and it will use those clues and scan them and compare them against my contacts inside of Clio and the matters that I have inside of Clio, and it will decide this is the St. Regis Ball Harbor matter. It will also write a narrative that is more about reading versus corresponding or sending, right? It's pretty good with action verbs because those are important.
And I know that some firms, for example, have a practice that any incoming emails, when you respond to emails, will be billed at least, let's say 6 minutes, a tenth of an hour, right? If that's the case, can your system accommodate for those minimums?
Yes, it absolutely can. So let's quickly refresh and see if anything is loaded yet. So this is what it actually looks like. I'm going to briefly pause Ajax just so that we sort of have a clean thing to work from. And let's check this out. So first, it was able to pick up, okay, this is from my calendar. I have a meeting with you, prepared for Zoom meeting, Ajax Demo, administrative timekeeping is the correct matter. Reviewed time entries in Ajax. You can see it literally under the hood, it actually just read the email to Percy Sullivan. And you can see that it shifted. It was unknown, and now it's Aerodyne Aviation. To answer your question directly, this is a 0.1. So it was 2 minutes long, but it rounded it up to 6 minutes.
Right.
What you're seeing here, just to walk the viewers through it briefly, is hours, activity codes, a narrative that is pre-written for me in my voice, little clues as to what I was doing on my computer during that time, the matter, and the options to reject an entry or release it into Clio. This is pretty much perfect. Corresponded with Richard Alfaro. It got Napoleon Digital Medical. I like this. I'm going to say emailed, just to show you that it is actually something that we can edit on the fly. I'm going to release it. And this is now in Clio as an activity. That's simple.
Right. So I understand when you say that it essentially adapts to your style. It will, as you're using the system, it will understand kind of the wording that you use, right, in this time entries as you make any edits.
Yeah, before you even get started with Ajax, it syncs into Clio, so it's able to pull your previous narratives that you've written and learn your house style, your voice. And then anytime you make a change, this, by the way, you can see that the St. Regis Ball Harbor one, it was reading, and it was able to pick up St. Regis Ball Harbor. If I make a change here, and I say corresponded with Sarah Thompson, it will learn that I prefer to say the person I'm corresponding with. And next time I write an entry, it's more likely to actually include the correspondent's name.
Okay. And is there any ability to, let's say, like add some custom instructions on top of whatever it has been able to understand, let's say, on its own?
Yeah, so there are two ways that it learns. First is we kind of manually poke it in different directions. So we have whenever we onboard a new firm, we have quick calls with each person that's actually coming on board, and we ask them, what is your narrative style? How clustered versus unclustered do you want things to be? So is every email to a client one entry, or do you want to bundle 5 of those emails into 1.1 so you don't seem like you're overbilling? Different firms, different lawyers have different preferences, and we've built the system to be really flexible to that. So that's thing one. And then thing two is that ongoing learning piece. So every time you make a change, it starts to approximate what you're actually doing.
Love it. Okay. So it has been released into Clio. What can we do after that?
So let's say that, well, first let's actually look at it in Clio, right? I find that this is often a bit of an aha moment. So this got written for me. I made no changes whatsoever. I clicked release, and within about 3 seconds, it showed up in Clio as an activity. It's really that simple to capture that extra 0.1, right? That's at my rate, very expensive. That's $70. That was basically just dropped into my pocket. In terms of what else we can do, I can unrelease it if I want to bring it back to Ajax and start editing it. I can merge things together. So let's say that I want to basically combine these two entries. I'm going to block bill here. There's the option to block bill or not block bill. Let's say that I want to release this guy into Clio, and then I want to say this is actually part of that entry too, and I want to add this 2 minutes to an existing Clio entry. I can merge into Clio entry, I can pick it, and I can basically turn this 2 minutes and this 3 minutes into a 0.2. So Ajax plays really cleanly with Clio. We built it to be sort of a full add-on. It's not ever going to replace Clio. You do your billing there. Clio is necessary for a lot of things. But we built it so that it feels really seamless to sort of operate in both simultaneously. We know that nobody wants to learn new habits.
Right. So what happens if, for example, you're working on something not necessarily work related, or just like answering some emails with vendors, not necessarily billable. How do you make sure that, you don't get swamped with all those time entries as the day goes on?
Great question. So there are a couple layers of defense here. One is a spam folder. So when you're working in Ajax, I don't have any spam right now, but when you're working in Ajax, same as your email automatically filters out those the inbound emails that you're getting from random vendors, like me, for example. And you can check your spam folder if you want to see them, but they're hidden from you by default. Ajax has the same thing. So if you are checking your email and you're looking at stuff that's clearly not billable, or if you are planning a dinner with your wife for that weekend, right? That stuff is very clearly not billable work. It's not related to a client. Our system is good at filtering that stuff out. It just throws it in spam. So if you want to find it, you can always search for something by subject line or by the recipient of an email or the name of a document. That's easy. But for the most part, you're not going to be overwhelmed. The second way that we allow people to manually sort of correct for potential over or under capture is you can always mark something non-billable if you'd like. So that way, even if it gets pushed into Clio, you're not going to end up billing a client for it. And most importantly, you can just reject it. There's no obligation to push this stuff into Clio. If you reject it, it just goes into this little archive folder. You can unreject it if you like, but that gets it out of your way.
Love it, love it. And let's talk a bit about team management, right? So imagine I'm an attorney. I have an admin person who is handling my timekeeping. Can they look at my entries? Can that timekeeper easily switch in between different attorney profiles and do that work for them of reviewing it at the end of the day?
It's a really good question. There are two kind of answers to that, or two ways that you might want to frame it. One is, let's say I'm a really busy managing partner, and frequently I have my legal assistant do my hours for me. That legal assistant, yes, absolutely can log in if access is granted and do your hours for you. It's in fact a really good way to use Ajax because it gives them a much better starting point versus you dictating or them trying to piece it together from your calendar. That said, if you're a managing partner and you are looking to use this to spy on your associates, figure out what documents they were in, whether they were watching YouTube at 3 p.m. when they should have been working, I regret to inform you, we don't enable that. There is no way for you to peek into somebody else's Ajax without their permission until they have released stuff into Clio, because privacy really matters. Like, people do not adopt tools that they feel aren't acting in their best interest. And if you're an associate, if you're a paralegal, you want this thing to make your life easier. You do not want it to start getting you in trouble for spending 3 minutes on ESPN checking headlines, right? So, as a practical matter, just pure pragmatism, people use this and it's really valuable to them, and their managing partners find more billables. That's the real goal here. So we've been able to, when managing partners ask us for that deeper cut of access, to basically say, look, the best timekeeping solution is the one that your people are willing to adopt because that's how you find more dollars. And they're going to be more willing to adopt it if you do not have that access.
Right. I mean, it's not about monitoring, right? Workspace monitoring tool. It's more about just getting those time entries in, right, and then billing for them. So Jack, what about those firms that needs to be tracking those activity categories and or UTBMS codes inside of Clio? Would Ajax be able to support that?
100%. Yes. So we work with insurance defense firms. If you know insurance defense, you know that they are sticklers for activity codes, for task codes. If you get those wrong, you are just not going to get paid. So the burden of proof or the requirement for Ajax to be correct is really high. And the fact that those insurance defense firms are working with us and using it regularly, that's a testament to how accurate it is. So we ingest your existing codes if you have custom codes inside of Clio. Otherwise, we use the standard UTBMS codes, and your entries, when they're written, are going to have those selected. As with everything else in Ajax, if you want to edit them before you release into Clio, you are welcome to.
No, and I just spoke with another firm. They said like, hey, we have one person essentially spending 3/4 of their time just doing time entries, and it's really a firm of less than 5 people, right? So it could be massive win for firms like that. All right. In terms of firms actually starting adopting this, let's say for example, a firm still uses, the Clio Manage timer as they onboard, right, as they start adopting the solution, is it best for them to kind of shift straight away, or can they still have this transitionary period where they're using both solutions, the Clio Managed native one and Ajax at the same time?
Good question. The 1 second that I stop screen sharing, suddenly I need to go back. We have exact feature parity with Clio. So you have the ability to add a new entry here directly into Clio. We have the ability to create timers inside of Ajax if you so choose. In fact, people really like that sometimes because it gives you an audit trail of everything that happened when the timer was on. So there's never that, oh, I forgot to stop my timer, or how long was I actually spending? Generally, when we pilot, we just ask people, hey, you might be skeptical. Give us 2 days. Spend all your time in Ajax when you're timekeeping. Try to use the pre-written narratives and release them when you can. If it really doesn't work, if there's some work you were doing, talking to a coworker and it wasn't tracked, just add a new entry here, push it into Clio. Usually after people give us literally 1 day's worth of their time, they see that it saves them so much time writing the narratives because it's just really painful. It's this extra mental friction every time to write client-facing, ready narratives. So usually there's something for everybody. Either they want to track their time and they're not good at it, so it's really helpful in terms of that safety net, or it's just removing friction and speeding them up a little bit. 80-90% of people switch to being Ajax only pretty quickly.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So talk a bit about the product timeline, right? So what can we expect from Ajax in the next few months?
Oh, great question. So first, Mac integration. Right now, we've got a Mac sort of hybrid situation where we work great with Windows. For Macs, we work with Outlook, we work with Gmail, we work with your calendar, we work with your phone systems. We've got all that capture. But the screen reading is not actually live right now because we don't have a downloadable Mac native app. Working on that right now. Really excited because we've got a big backlog of firms that use Mac or are sort of split between Windows and Mac. So we'll be able to bring them all. Two is fleshing out some more of our practice management software integrations. So right now we are Clio only. We are really, really, really good at working with Clio, pulling information in, pushing information to. But the same is not true of MyCase, of FileBind, of Centerbase, of SharePoint, all of the other softwares that mid-sized law firms use. So working through those integrations so that we can bring this to more and more people. That's really exciting. And then third is dashboarding, right? So if you're a managing partner, right now we send reporting on a weekly basis, which is really helpful to track your people's usage of Ajax, how many extra dollars it's finding, the ROI on the price, right? People find that very valuable. But what's even more valuable is a true BI solution. So the ability to slice and dice a million ways your firm's hours, how much work is being done on a given matter, right? Really just becoming more of a thought partner for a managing partner as he's thinking, okay, I've got 25 timekeepers in my firm. How do I use them most effectively? We're in a really nice position where because Ajax tracks everyone's time, we can actually help give those useful recommendations. So leveraging the data we currently have in order to give managing partners not just extra dollars in their pocket, but actually a better handle on what's going on at their firm. That's the next step.
Right. With the reporter, will they be able to understand, for example, if some employees are underperforming, right, or being underutilized, and like surface those insights and show them potentially how they can build more? What exactly are we talking about there?
Yeah, good question. So one thing, and if you're an underperforming or maybe a quiet quitter, this might be a little scary to you. But we've had firms pilot with us and have a wave of one or two people get let go pretty shortly thereafter because it's pretty clear that they weren't just data tracking their time; they were actually not doing the work, and there's no excuse anymore because the time is tracked automatically. So that's one way that Ajax currently benefits people, but it's pretty stark, right? It's like someone has to be really underperforming. More useful and sort of more granular in sort of day to day is things more like, okay, you have two associates, they are working on very similar briefs or very similar M&A documents. And it took one person 5 hours and it took another person 3 hours, despite the actual work they were doing, like the sections they were drafting being very similar. Here's an opportunity for coaching. So here's a way that you can actually make your people better and up level them. Those are the kind of recommendations we wanted to give.
Right. And so let's talk about email login, right? I understand it's also on the timeline. So talk a bit more about that.
Oh, yeah. So right now, Ajax creates time entries for your emails. So if you are using Outlook, if you're using Gmail, and you send emails from your phone, from your iPad, from your computer, that's going to get tracked. There will be an entry. It will get turned into an activity in Clio. What we don't do right now is take that email and all of its relevant attachments and automatically file it to a matter when you do that release from Ajax. That's really helpful. We've had a lot of our firms say, look, we love what Ajax is doing, but we honestly we are tired of using the Outlook or Gmail native integration to do that sync because it's just really manual and it's a little bit frustrating. People send a lot of emails. So I think that's another example of using our position where people are using Ajax every day and they're feeding us all the information that we need. It's probably a week and a half to build and then another week and a half to really polish with the firms we work with and get it right and perfect. But that's on our roadmap for the next month or two because frankly, our people need it.
Love it, love it. No, so let's talk about the unique value proposition of what that Ajax provides, right? Because there are several other providers on the market that offer similar kind of solutions. We have Wise Time that tracks, does this AI as well enabled time tracking and login. And then we have, for example, Tempello that does email login plus time entries related to those emails without kind of with the other time entries that are not related to email management. So how does Ajax stack up against, for example, those two?
Yeah, so I don't want to speak ill of any competitors, but I will say one thing about Ajax versus really anybody else in the market. I have taken firms that used them and any other solution you can name, piloted Ajax with them, and they have stopped paying those other companies and started being, ardent and like regular Ajax users. I've never had that the opposite happen. Like I've literally never once had a firm stop using Ajax. Once they're on, they stay on. Yeah, it really just it works for itself. And the reason for that versus Tempello specifically is Tempello is really, really convenient. Like it is nice to have your emails captured. It's nice to have them filed. But the actual capture radius is just the email. So it lacks a lot of context as to what you were doing before, why you sent a given email. And if you're doing document work, if you're doing web searches, if you're doing calendared meetings, right? All of that is information that you probably want time entries created for. So in practice, 60, 70% of your day, you're still doing manually if you're using Tempello. With respect to Wise Time, they're super convenient. Again, I think in 2015 they were absolutely state of the art, but they were built in 2015. They're not leveraging the most recent AI advances. And what that means in practice for you is they show you a lot of stuff. You have to review everything you were doing in your day. And there's a lot of work to basically turn what they give you into a timesheet that your clients are actually going to be happy with. Because Ajax is comparing every second that you worked to every other second, and it's doing smart merges based off of you moving between three files for a related case and writing really coherent narratives that learn from you, it takes you less time to review. And because it takes you less time to review, you're more likely to use it and you're more likely to find more dollars.
And what about those firms that have partly hourly billing and then partly, let's say, flat fee and contingency? how do those firms, if possible, right? How would they use Ajax?
We do not try to bite off more than we can chew. If you're a flat fee or contingency, right now, Ajax is not a product for you, right? If part of your firm is flat fee or contingency, and we have a lot of firms like this, we don't force the entire firm to use it, right? This isn't some sort of, gun to your head negotiation. We have month to month. We allow you to flexibly move up and down your number of seats. So if you're 4 flat fee timekeepers just don't want to use Ajax, but your 10 non-flat fee hourly billers do, great. We'll work with that.
Let's now talk about return on investment, right? So ROI. After implementing Ajax, how much more time would you expect an average firm to be able to 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 gain versus not being tracked before? And how fast would just like the solution pay for itself?
Thank you for teeing that up. So we have 3 pilots closing this week, right? All 3 of them are going to start being paying Ajax users. The reason for that is because I had conversations with these managing partners yesterday, all 3 of them, and I sent them basically a little 1-pager PDF report of hours per user captured in Clio. So billable hours like per day during the Ajax pilot versus 2025 before the Ajax pilot. So it's just a pure comparison. How much benefit is Ajax giving you? How much lift? The ROI stats between those different ones, right? Ajax paid for itself 12 times over with one firm, paid for itself 77 times over with another firm, paid for itself 32 times over with the third firm. I mean, the numbers are eye popping, and it's really like, I have not done my job if it's not really clear to you by the end of your pilot that this is worth paying for. And so far, that's always been the case.
Allow it, Jack. You need to increase your prices. All right. And so if people then want to get started with Ajax, what's the best next steps?
Book a demo. So go to joinajax.com/demo and you'll see a calendar link. It's got my smiling face. Actually, I'm not smiling. I'm looking very serious. It's okay. I'm a friendly guy. Book a 30-minute demo. We'll talk about how you currently keep time. I will give you a quick run through of how Ajax can find you more billables. We'll set up a pilot for your people. Very low risk. It's month to month. There's no sort of upfronts like, work required on your end. And you'll see. If we find you more billable hours and you think it's worth paying for, then great. If not, go our separate ways. Although I will say, I've been doing this for a while. In the last 6 months, 0 people have piloted and not paid for it. The thing really does just work.
Wow. Well, those some great stats, and I guess it will lead to the company growing quite quickly for you, Jack. Thank you very much for your time today and for this demo. If anybody's interested, feel free to reach out to Jack and join ajax.com. And then thank you for sharing the software.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate you having me, Martin. It's good to talk.